Welcome to Teams Tuesday, a podcast about mastering the best about what other people have already figured out. Teams Tuesday focuses on insights and lessons that never expire. You will walk away from every episode with actionable insights that help you get better results and be more productive.
This was about as bizarre and easy as it gets.
The client just couldn't make up their mind.
I feel like we had top.
Went from a project of 20 weeks to just 2.
The DevOps was a cultural shift.
This is Teams Tuesday with your host, Peter Ward.
Hi, welcome to Teams Tuesday. It's September 2022, and we've got a great speaker, Sandy, who I must have known for about 10 or 12 years. I think we first met at a SharePoint conference, SharePoint Saturday in Philadelphia. Maybe you were talking about InfoPath in those days, I don't know. So welcome, Sandy.
Yeah, I think that's probably about right.
Okay, so since 12 years ago, I know I've seen you on the speaker circuit here and there. What are you typically been doing for the last 2 or 3 years?
Well, I had been doing just strictly SharePoint, but now I'm doing mainly Power Platform, although SharePoint is still my first love, I guess I would say, in the Microsoft 365 universe. But my Microsoft MVP turned out to be in business applications, so Power Apps and Power Automate mainly, rather than in SharePoint.
Okay, it's good that you enjoy craft beer, so we do have something in common actually on that. And okay, so you're working at Lightning Tools, which does a lot of great tools for third-party plugins for Teams and SharePoint.
Yes.
And what is the Lightning? What is that?
Yeah, so that's a new business that Brett, the owner of Lightning Tools, and I formed a couple years ago, so during pandemic. And we do coaching in Power Platform and SharePoint and Teams and now Viva. So something in between consulting and training. So for people who don't want to, spend a whole week on a training course to learn, say, Power Automate, when they're just trying to do a thing and they don't need to learn everything about it, but also they don't want somebody to come in and do it for them because they would like to learn about it. So that's where coaching comes in.
Okay. That sounds good on that. Okay, that's the only plug I'm giving you on this.
All right, that's fine.
Okay, no, I'm kidding. All right. So what year, what version of SharePoint did you first get involved in?
2007.
2007,
yeah, 3? Moss.
Moss. Yeah, that's when it started really getting the traction. On that front. Okay.
Yeah, I owned a precast concrete business at that time, and I learned about SharePoint at some kind of like a .NET user group meeting or something I went to. And I thought, oh, this would be great for my business. And so I put it in my business, and it just really took off and learned a lot, and then started speaking about using SharePoint in a small business. And everything went from there.
Okay. And that's the classic case with SharePoint. It just goes viral within companies. And you're seeing that a lot with the Power Platform as well.
I only wish that existed when I owned my other business.
Yes, the SharePoint Designer and InfoPath stories I've got. I wish Power Platform was around 10 years earlier.
Yep.
As
soon as those came out in 2016, I think it was. Like when they were still in preview, Power Apps and Power Automate, I thought that they sounded really cool, and I started speaking on those while they were still in preview, which was exciting because things were changing even more rapidly than they are now. I'd go to talk about something and it would be different.
Well, yes, there is that. Okay, so I have a few rapid fire questions for you. Your first job out of college, what was that?
I taught computer programming, and so this is 40 years ago at this point. So I was teaching Pascal, COBOL, and BASIC at a business college.
Okay. I'm assuming what were you using? VM.
We had DEC computers, and then also PCs too. So
Sure. All right. Okay. And what was your last challenging project and why?
Yeah, I don't really do projects so much, so that's kind of but the most challenging thing I did recently, I guess I would say, is I spoke about Power BI at the Thrive conference in Slovenia in May, and Power BI is the part of the Power Platform that I use the least, I guess. And so I kind of had some learning to do to do that, but it went well, I think, in the end. So I was very pleased with how that went.
Right. Okay. And I'm assuming you gave that presentation in English.
Yes. The whole conference is in English.
Right. Okay. In terms
It's a fantastic conference.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There was that, as we were talking earlier. There was a Power Platform conference going on last week in Orlando. What's your favorite M365 feature and tool, and why?
Well, SharePoint. I just still really use SharePoint a lot. I use it myself just personally and like to put all of my events and things in. And I really like where Microsoft is going with the platform in general.
Is it, are you talking about lists or OneNote or documents or
yeah, just sites and lists, and I like the look of it and how easy it is to work with. I mean, as coming from somebody who struggled through trying to use SharePoint 2007, and there's so much more that you can do now. I mean, I guess I wouldn't have necessarily said that was the case when SharePoint Online first came out, and it felt like we were missing a lot of things. But now that we've gotten a lot of those things back in SharePoint Online that we had in on-prem, we still, at Lightning Tools, we still support some customers who are using 2010, 2013. And it's painful. It feels painful to go do anything on a server.
Yes, we've done a few branding things with people, and this course is in Classic, and because they have put so much time and effort on the Classic, it's almost like lethargic kind of. Or they just don't want to. It's almost like deliberately driving a BMW from the 1980s. It just, it's just like, I'm in love with this kind of thing. I'm very attached to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the demo, what are you talking about with the demo here? The Power Platform, I'm assuming.
Yes. So, and then since this is Teams Tuesday, I thought I'd show each of the parts of the Power Platform in Teams and how they interact with it. Are we ready for that?
Sure. Okay. And this is sort of like Power Platform with the Teams. And how experienced are you with the Dataverse?
Not as much as with SharePoint, like as a data source, but one of the things I wanted to show is the free part of Dataverse that you get in Teams.
Yep.
Because I would say that
a lot of clients ask me about that, actually.
Yeah, because all of the things I'm going to show are available for free. I mean, free meaning you have to have a Microsoft 365 license, of course, but you don't have to buy extra licenses for the things that I'm going to show.
Understood. All right. Okay. Sandy, take it away.
Okay.
Live from Florida. Live
Pardon?
from Naples in Florida. Live from Naples in Florida.
Yep. So I'm in Teams here, and so first I wanted to talk about Power Automate integrations with Teams. I know I watched you had Anna on a couple months ago, and she talked about that too, but she didn't get quite to the approvals. So that's what I was going to show is Power Automate approvals in Teams. And so there are a couple ways to approach that. One is that there's the actual approvals app on the left rail as a personal app. So if you click on approvals, it'll show you all the approvals that you have been involved in, whether you've received or sent them. And it's kind of nifty here. You can create a new approval request right from here and just do a basic one, or this is a template one, it's Leave, that I have installed org-wide, or there are other templates that you as the administrator can make available to your team to be able to do in the approvals. And those use Power Automate also, but way deep in the background somewhere, I haven't been able to suss out where exactly the flows are for that. It seems to be like built into the system somehow. But what I'm going to show is not in the approvals center, but if I'm just in Teams and I have build your own Power Automate approvals that work with and in Teams by using the approvals action. So if I am logged in here, I'm logged in as me, but I'm going to switch browsers where I'm logged in as my other user, Pliny the Elder. And so I have an approval set up on uploading new files to this presentations library. And I'm going to actually upload a file and upload a Power Platform presentation. So that's being uploaded, and because I have the Power Automate flow set up, then back in my approvals, because I'm the one who is supposed to approve Plainy's presentation, in a few minutes anyway, get a little activity notification and that I can approve that. That takes a little bit of time. So while I'm waiting for that, we can go look at the flow. So here in Power Automate, this is triggered on, in this case, when a file is created, but there are triggers in Teams as well, which I think Anna covered those pretty well. So what I'm doing here is start waiting for an approval. So when that file is uploaded, then I use the approval action to start and wait for an approval. Is all kind of standard Power Automate. But then if it's approved, I'm going to send a message, post a message in the channel to say that there's been this new presentation that's now live because it's been approved, and you can view it. So let's go back to Teams. There's my notification. So I, as the approver, received a notification that I got an approval request. And so that notification in Teams takes me right to the approval request. I think when they first came out with this, you had to like navigate to things, but now you don't. Yep. And so I'll say that looks great.
Can you kick off the approval request from Word or not?
From what?
Or do you have to, can you kick off the approval request from Word, or do you have to be in the SharePoint library?
I don't know that you can, like if you're in the document, I mean, if you're in the SharePoint library, the other way you could do that is not have it triggered on an upload, but actually once it's ready to submit for approval, you select the item in the library and then do the, like for a selected item kind of trigger in Power Automate. But as I'm aware anyway, there isn't yet Power Automate action right within Word. Could be coming, I don't know. So I'm going to approve that. And then that shows up in my list of approvals that happened. And in Plainy's Teams, he'll get a notification that his request was approved and that I said it looked great. And if we go back into Teams, that's in the, in this one, in the Power Platform team, then that's the message that was posted by the flow that there's a new presentation and that I can view it here. And if I click on the link, then that takes me into the presentation itself. So that's it for Power Automate. The next thing I wanted to show was Power Apps in Teams, and there are a couple different ways that you can use Power Apps in Teams. You can just add a Power App as a tab, but kind of more recently, although it's been now a year and a half, maybe 2 years, time flies, where you can actually build Power Apps in Teams, and it's kind of its own thing, Power Apps in Teams. So here I've added Power Apps already to my left rail. If you don't already have it there, then when you click the 3 dots, you'll be able to, start typing Power Apps and then add it here. So when I go to Power Apps from here, it'll open the Power Apps home. And if you wait just a minute, it gives you some apps that you can add to your team. So these are pre-built ones that Microsoft has put together, and some of them are pretty nifty. Like I added the employee ideas one, and we can take a glance at that real quick. But also then you'll see any apps that you've already built. And actually this is kind of the gateway to all of the Power Platform, all of the Power Platform things in Teams actually. So if I go see more here, then I can see any apps, flows, and Power Virtual Agents, bots that is, that I've created within Teams. And here I've just done them within this one team, the Power Platform Masterclass team. And if I click on See All, because this never seems to be quite a complete list, it seems to me, then I can see any apps I have, chatbots, cloud flows, and tables is Dataverse, actually. So you may have heard of Dataverse as Microsoft's data source that they would like us all to use, basically. And it's got
really... What is the data source? How would you describe data source?
Dataverse?
Dataverse, yes.
Yes, formerly known as CDS when it first came out, and it's just, I mean, it's what's behind Dynamics 365 for one thing. I mean, that's kind of where it came out of, but now it's been expanded so that anyone can use it, and it's a premium license if you're using it, if you want to use it in your general environments, but if you're using it within Teams in this way, in Power Apps for Teams, then this part of Dataverse is free. It's kind of Dataverse Lite, I guess I would say, because it does not have some of the full features that full Dataverse has. It's got some limits, which I forget what they currently are, but you can create tables. I mean, so it's basically creating a little database right within Teams here, because whenever you add Power Apps to a team, what's happening behind the scenes is it's creating a whole new environment in Microsoft 365 for that team. And so all of these things, any chatbots, flows, apps, and tables you build in here are then in that environment. And so it's kind of an enclosed little space where you have this database. So this would be tables you would build here would be for your use in the Power Apps that you're using in this team. But the advantage to doing that is that then it's a kind of a built-in data source. You're not going out to SharePoint with this or some other thing with Power Apps in the team, which you could also do, but your data is right there and you can use it in different other ways, but mainly in the app is the idea.
Understood.
So I didn't build any tables in this particular one, but under the apps, though, yeah, I just started creating an app, but you get the whole Canvas, Power Apps Canvas design experience right within Teams. And if I actually go back and look at my team at the one that I did deploy, so I had added that Microsoft template one, the ideas. And when you add one of those templates, it becomes a tab in your team. And it usually takes a little bit of time to open, but not too bad. And so this is, like I said, one of the ones that Microsoft had. And so, but it gives you an idea. I would say any of those templates is great for learning because you can see how Microsoft did that and how they're building those kinds of things. Because then you can edit this in the Canvas app designer and make your own modifications and things like that. But it's nice to have it all within Teams right where you normally work.
Yeah, no, totally on that.
And like I said, doing that is all free. That's all included with your Microsoft 365 license. I lost my page there.
And when you say, are we talking about E3 here, or
I have an E3, so yes, it doesn't have to be E5 even. Yep.
Right.
And then the next part of the Power Platform I wanted to show is Power Virtual Agents, and that's chatbots basically. And that as a standalone license can get fairly expensive, but within Teams, that's also free, which is pretty darn cool, I think.
Is there limitations on the functionality of it being in Teams and with it being not in Teams?
I am going to say probably yes, but I don't know what they are, I'm afraid.
Okay.
I don't recall what that is. I mean, it is only limited here, whereas with the real Power Virtual Agents, you can put that on your website or, in SharePoint or anything like that. Here it's just within Teams and it comes up in your chat area. So if I go to chat, I have this one called Beverage Bot. Is the bot that I created. And so if I say that I'm thirsty, because this is for ordering drinks at the Lightning Tools office, whenever everybody's in the office, then somebody does a round of coffees or teas or whatever. So my bot is asking me what I would like. I would like some tea, actually. And I do not.
Someone who likes craft tea, craft beer. You're ordering a cup of tea. I see.
Yeah, could do that.
I have a quick question, actually. Quick question for you is the Dataverse data backed up? The reason why we use third-party backup tools. So we use we always recommend our clients something called Backify. I don't know what the settings are on that. Okay, but I can find that out.
Yeah, I am not sure about that. I mean, it's probably got the same sort of security and whatnot as, SharePoint and OneDrive and everything. Actually, maybe more, I'm thinking, is what I have heard. But yeah, I don't know precisely. And security isn't the same as what you're asking, but I have to assume that it is. But I know that people assume that a lot with Microsoft 365 in general. So not necessarily true. So I just wanted to show how you get to the chatbot authoring. But it always takes a little while. I thought I had left. But in that Power Apps screen, you might have seen my Beverage Bot was in there. And so when you click on that, it opens a Power Virtual Agents. It's still right within Teams. And then if I go in to edit that, they're fairly easy to create basic ones anyway. And what you can do if it kind of starts getting more complex is you can add Power Automate flows behind them to do some of the nitty-gritty work and the chatbot is just kind of the voice of the bot that the users are seeing. But basically when you go in to add a bot, then you add topics. So this topic is ordering a beverage, and you kind of create a workflow, a flow, so to speak, with questions and how, branching based on the answers. This particular bot needs some work. I didn't spend a whole lot of time on it, but then I have like a confirmation. You have variables you can use and things like that. You can create entities, so it's got a lot built in, like cities and colors and so on, but you can add your own, like I had the type of beverage and the type of coffee, that sort of thing. So it's pretty neat, and then you can publish that out to your users. And then I don't know why it keeps thinking I've left, but and then the last thing I wanted to show really quick is Power BI. So that's another one of the Power Platform apps that you can add to Teams, and that gives you the full, pretty full ability to create reports and so on right within Teams, as you would in Power BI otherwise. Now here too, if you want to get into sharing and publishing your reports and so on, that's where you get into licenses. But if you're just using it in Teams like this, like I don't have a Power BI Pro license or anything, but I can view reports that I've created. So this is one that I had created some time ago where I was using a flick button to check into different locations around the Midlands. And there you are, right around in there, Peter, right? Right.
Yes, Market Horror Foxton, yes.
Yeah, but while I'm within Teams, what I can do in Power BI is there's a chat in Teams button. And so I can just click that and put that into a channel, into a team, and it'll add the link there so I can share that. And that's now gone right into Teams. So if I'm logged in as my other user, there's the post I just made as me. Then I, as the other user, can click on that and see that same report. So pretty basic. Oh, well, I thought I could. There's some kind of anomaly, but
live
anyway.
demo here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's
but
the
that's
data
the idea,
behind?
Though.
Okay.
You can use it right within Teams, and you can create visualizations and everything, right? And that's it.
Yeah. What's the data behind that? Are we looking at? Is that that's connecting to Dataverse or something else?
Oh, that particular one that I had just shown.
Yes.
Had been a SharePoint list, and that was quite a while ago, but it's still the same SharePoint list though.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's just, that happens to be where I was saving my check-ins.
Right. Okay. Very cool. All right. And
that's all I had for my demo.
Okay. Very quickly. I know. So we're coming up on this. Okay. So in terms of the virtual agents and the Power Platform, what would you say are the general, where do really people push the boat out on this? Where they really sort of extend the technology to where the technology is really, really cool, like in terms of mobility, in terms of like
right. I mean, having
projects.
Right. I mean, having this, just having it all of these things available within Teams, I guess I would say, and there's more and more of that coming, I think, probably. in addition to more and more AI being built into all of the things, really. So that'll also be, part of what you'll see in Teams. I'm just gonna unshare my screen for a second here, if I can.
A quick question coming up here. Can Power BI in Teams connect to an Oracle database?
Oh, well, as far as I'm aware, when you're using Power BI and Teams, I don't know that there's any limit on what you're connecting to, in the same way that you can connect to things in, like, using Power BI desktop, as far as I'm aware.
Right. So, because you know how Microsoft technology normally means it works very well with SQL and other Microsoft stuff, but when you connect to another database, you sometimes need a middleware layer.
Right. And I don't recall specifically about Oracle. I would have to say, though, there's quite a long list of data sources you can connect to in Power BI natively. So, but I'm not positive about Oracle. Sorry.
Okay. There's another question. Do you mean, can I share my Power BI reports to anyone I can find on Teams without the need for a Power BI server?
Power BI server or Power BI license. Yeah, so I'd need to probably check into that a little bit more, because generally speaking, when you, like, for example, if you're using Power BI desktop, you can create all you want, but the minute you want to share it with people, then they need at least some kind of Power BI license to be able to view it. But I know that I was just reading this, actually, it should be the case in Teams that for people in your team just to be able to view the reports, I don't think need to have a Power BI license, but I'd have to confirm that, actually.
So the question about the Oracle database, what I've found is that when you're connecting, not just with Power BI, when you're connecting to like an ERP system or Salesforce or even Dynamic CRM, you kind of need like a middleware tool, like an extraction tool, automation, something like Mule Logic is one of the products. There's another one called Snap Logic, which we've implemented. These are non-Microsoft products, but they're great connectors in grabbing serious amounts of data, very point and click, and moving it into more of a user-friendly database, even if that is a SharePoint list. However, generally when you're using SharePoint Oracle databases, you're looking at large amounts of data, which doesn't really work well in SharePoint lists. But you use something like Snap Logic, you can connect into these databases very easily and be shifting the data around quite a bit.
I guess my question there would be then, do you really mean to move the data, or are you just trying to, or would it be better to leave the data where it is and just act on it? Like, for example, Power Automate has, I'm pretty sure, an Oracle connector, hasn't it? SQL connector and Dynamics 365, obviously, connectors. And one of the things they announced last week, actually, at the conference, was SAP connectors for Power Automate, which is pretty cool.
Right.
So they're connecting directly.
Well, there's a number of tools out there to do this. Like, we actually use Zapier for basically getting snippets of data out of a variety of third-party databases and bringing that into SharePoint lists and doing Power Automate on that and Power BI on that. So basically the SharePoint list is the data, but you're absolutely right. This is what's known as like the ETL processes, where you're extracting, transformation and loading data from one system to another. And and it's a dream come true if you can report on the database itself, because the closer you're reporting to the database, the cheaper it is, because you don't need to extract it. But then you get throttling issues, and you also, if it's an Oracle database, you've probably got hundreds of tables of fields, of which you only need 6 or 7. So you're right. It's one of these, people ask these questions and say, well, that depends. Maybe. Okay. Yes, and you always answer the question with another question, which is not always good on that front. Okay. Just a few more rapid fire questions. What's the best and worst tech advice you've been given? Give me the best advice.
Well, I guess I would say using SharePoint. It seems like I'm repeating myself, but it's true.
Yes. Okay. And the worst advice?
Yeah, I couldn't really think of any worst tech advice. And I was just talking to somebody actually the other day. This isn't necessarily tech advice, but that my mom had encouraged me to take typing classes in high school instead of science classes, which I felt really terrible about at the time. But now, I mean, that's what got me into computers, really. So
I see. Well, there you go. Mum knows best often.
Yeah, always.
And you're a big traveler as well, where
Yes.
you like to be traveling. You're almost like the digital nomad here.
I was, yes. Yeah, my husband and I had sold our house and gave away all our stuff about 7 years ago now in Pittsburgh. And then we were traveling around, just like we would, if I was going to a conference, we would go for the weekend and then just stay for a month, or we did house sitting and Airbnbs and things like that around the world and the country. But then we got stuck in Northern California during the pandemic, which is where our daughter was living at the time. And then just last winter, we decided to move here to Naples, Florida, at least for a while, because my mom lives here.
Okay, very nice. Otherwise, a hurricane going on there, isn't there?
Well, yes, there's a hurricane bearing down on us right now.
Okay. Yeah, it's very nice when we're in non-hurricane season.
Yes.
Yeah. In terms of where do you generally source a lot of your knowledge from?
I've always said that everything I knew about SharePoint I learned from Twitter, which is definitely true because I started following Twitter people back in 2007 when Twitter was pretty quiet. And so that's how I got to know people like Shane Young and Todd Clint and Laura Rogers. And then I got to meet them in person, and now I'm good friends with them. And similar, I guess, for Power Platform. I think I first met most of my Power Platform friends through Twitter, and that's kind of how we keep in touch. But also, and that's still Shane, again, he also transitioned from SharePoint to Power Apps mostly. And yeah, it was great to see everybody in person last week at the Power Platform conference. Yeah, we had a nice big dinner with a bunch of people like that. But also then now Microsoft is, I guess, my main source of information, especially now that I'm an MVP and have access to that.
Yes, you get that inside knowledge as well. And you still also see what's coming down the pipe.
Right. Yeah, that's always good.
Which is super helpful as well. Okay. All right. Okay. When you said you use SharePoint lists, do I suggest converting an Oracle table to a SharePoint list as a data source for Power BI? Right. This kind of like good free consulting here. Okay. This sort of like depends on like how much data you've got. Right. So here you've got, if the Power BI doesn't have a connector in, well, assuming, I don't know where your Oracle database is, okay, so it's probably on the Oracle cloud or it's on-prem or whatever. So if the data is on-prem, you will need a connector from the Power BI to get you into the database on-prem. So what I'm suggesting, and given the lack of total technology solution stack you actually have, what you could do is you could grab that data, and by using some of the tools that I mentioned, you could only grab the data you particularly need and then put that into a SharePoint list. Now, if you're trying to shift thousands and thousands of records, hundreds of thousands of records every night from an Oracle database into a SharePoint list, I would not recommend doing that. So therefore, it looks at your data. I'll look at your data volume as well. And again, instead of a SharePoint list, it could be just an Azure table. Okay, so it's a local server. Okay,
I just now, by the way, opened up.
So that's local. Pardon?
I just now opened up Power BI Desktop to check, and there is an Oracle database choice when you're saying to get data. I don't happen to have one to actually see what you get there, but then I assume that you can choose your tables and your data right from Power BI, I think.
Okay. Okay, so you can connect onto it and you can report any reporting on it. But okay, but the database is local, so you're going to need to use the Power BI like on-prem thing as the router almost, aren't you? On that. Okay, so I hope that answers the person's question on that. Sandy, as ever, it's very good to see you in person.
Yeah, good to see you too.
I look forward to seeing you at are you speaking in person at any SharePoint conferences or Teams conferences in the near future?
Yes, I'll be in Branson in a couple of weeks at the North American Collaboration Summit.
Oh, okay, very cool. Where is that, by the way?
Branson, Missouri.
Missouri.
Kind
Okay.
of in the Ozarks. It's in the middle of nowhere, but it's a nice little conference that Mark Rackley runs, and like there are international speakers coming and so on. And we're going to be also, it turned out that Ignite is at that same time, and so some of the sessions will be live streams of Ignite and also some live sessions from Ignite.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you for your time, and always good to see you.
Thanks, Peter.
And thanks everyone. Thank you for everyone attending. Bye.
Bye.